West African nations set up a joint military force to fight Boko Haram. The life and tribulations of Burundian refugees. VOA's Edward Rema reports from a refugee camp in Tanzania. And as the world marks World Day Against Child Labor, we'll tell you about thousands of kids in Ethiopia who have to go to work. Africa 54 starts right now. Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Beginning in West Africa, suspected Boko Haram gunmen killed 37 people in raids on 5 villages around Maiduguri, the capital of northeast Nigeria's Borno state. A military source in a local village defense group said on Friday the Islamist militants who arrived on motorcycles and in four-wheel drive vehicles fired into houses and shot fleeing locals during Wednesday evening and the early hours of Thursday. On Thursday, Nigeria and its neighbors agreed to set up a joint military force to counter Boko Haram. The joint force based in the Chad capital, Jamaica, will be running by July the 30th. President Muhammadu Buhari has made clear his intention to crush the Islamist militant group during his tenure. The 72-year-old former military ruler, who was inaugurated just 2 weeks ago, met with the leaders of Chad, Niger and Benin and the defense minister of Cameroon. Buhari also promised to look into the recent claims by Amnesty International that Nigeria's military has committed war crimes during the campaign against Boko Haram.
Our commanders, mainly Nigerian commanders, have been accused of ill-treating Boko Haram. The question of Boko Haram killing tens and thousands of Nigerians was not an issue. I believe the military hierarchy is investigating the case since the allegation is made by the Human Rights Commission.
Well, in its 2 weeks since assuming office, Buhari has focused on the issue of Boko Haram. He has traveled to Niger and Chad and shifted the military command center from Abuja to Maiduguri, the capital of northeast Borno state and the birthplace of the Boko Haram insurgents. Now over to Europe. Hundreds of migrants brought to Italy after being rescued at sea have left immigration centers to try to reach northern Europe. Now they are camping outside the main train and coach stations in Rome and Milan. Migrants from countries including Syria, Eritrea, Somalia and South Sudan are taking shelter in the shade cast by olive and fig trees near Rome's Tiburtina station. Many of the adults slept on cardboard boxes with their few belongings in plastic bags piled up next to them. There are no toilet or washing facilities nearby, and many of the migrants use the only public toilet in the street, which is a paid toilet and requires coins for entry. EU countries are struggling to stem the flow of migrants from North Africa and the Middle East and to share the burden more evenly across the continent. After more than 50,000 people reached Italy so far this year and almost 2,000 drowned. Now, the Africa Union Summit opens its Executive Council meeting in Johannesburg. Ministers from the 53 African nations say they are optimistic about this year's theme, women's empowerment and for the prospect of development in Africa. The summit is also expected to address security issues across the continent as well as poverty. At the opening of an African gathering of ministers, the head of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, Carlos Lopez, praised the continent's economic resilience, but said there is need to be more action than talk.
No matter how extensive, consultations do not by themselves lead to high-quality plan documents or even less implementation. This is important because, as of yet, there are no grounds for over-enthusiasm. Indeed, average growth of 5% since the beginning of the century has still not translated into decent jobs and the elimination of large pockets of poverty and pervasive inequality. The negative perceptions about Africa will catch up with the wonderful intentions, once again, if we do not construct a reality that matches the aspirations of the continent, particularly its too much neglected youth and women.
Well, heads of state from the 53 member African nations will begin to meet on Saturday. Well, hundreds of Burundians seeking refuge in neighboring Tanzania continue to arrive in the country along the northwestern border. According to the UN's refugee agency, UNHCR, more than 90,000 Burundians have fled the country. VOA's Edward Rwema visited Nyarugusu refugee camp, where some are hosted, and sent us this report.
Hundreds of Burundians continue to flee into neighboring Tanzania, citing increased tension, intimidation and threats in the nation related to elections and the decision by the current president to seek another term in office. Once they have crossed the border, these refugees, who are mostly comprised of women and children, are transported to Nyarugusu camp in Kigoma, western Tanzania. This woman said she and her 4 young kids fled because of Imbonerakure, a youth wing of the ruling party CNDD-FDD. She said she was harassed because she was not a member of the party in power, and that is why she decided to flee. The UNHCR field officer in charge of Burundian refugees in Nyarugusu told the Voice of America that they were receiving between 300 to 500 Burundian refugees a day. As of this week, the total number of registered refugees was 53,000 in just a span of 2 months.
We are expecting and hoping that international community will support this operation. The current challenges, that is also, as I mentioned, in terms of health, water sanitation and the shelter. And since we are in the emergency phase, so these are our priorities. And once the situation is stabilized, then we will look into other sectors as well, for example, education and community services.
UNHCR and its partners have been providing basic assistance at the camp, but it has been a challenge to keep pace with the rate of arrivals. Some of the refugees complain of lack of essential items such as plastic sheets, blankets, mattresses, lack of enough food and adequate access to health care. This man, aged 75, says life has been hard for them because of lack of enough tents for shelter. He says he's been sleeping outside for a while now. The hospital at the camp has also been struggling to cater for the tens of thousands of refugees living in dire conditions and difficult health conditions. More than 20 people were infected with cholera at the camp. However, according to Dr. Florence Mushana, the health coordinator at Nyarugusu camp, the outbreak ranging among Burundian refugees has slowed significantly.
Yeah, we have new cases. We have cases of acute watery diarrhea, and after testing was confirmed to be cholera. Positive were about 22, but now was already contained in collaboration with UNHCR, UN international agents, as well as WHO, government. Since Saturday, we don't have any new case of diarrhea.
While tens of thousands of people continue to flee Burundi, the government insists there is no insecurity or violence in the country for people to leave their homes. Willie Nyamitwe, a senior advisor in the president's office, told the Voice of America that people were fleeing because of rumors.
When you go to meet them, you'll find that none of them has been injured. None of them has been tells or claims that he has lost any of his siblings or belongings. That means people are fleeing because of rumors.
Recent regional heads of state summit held in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania to discuss the political crisis in Burundi urged the political leadership to exercise restraint and to ensure the right environment of refugees who fled the conflict to return home.
Well, Edward Rwema reporting from Nyarugusu, Tanzania. To another conflict. After 13 months of fighting and 6 failed ceasefires, there's no sign that the solution to South Sudan's conflict is in sight. As the talks drag on, populations in southern Sudan are suffering disease and food shortages. According to the Wildlife Conservation Society, now the slow pace of the peace process and the proliferation of armed actors in South Sudan also threatens to drastically reduce populations of elephant, giraffe, tiang, and other key wildlife species in key biodiversity areas. For more on the ongoing conflict in South Sudan, I'm joined by Gabriel Changson Chang, head of finance of SPLM-IO and the former Minister of Wildlife. Welcome to Africa 54. Yeah, so the SPLM, sometimes people get confused. The IO stands for in opposition, because it used to belong to the same big body, SPLM. Now, you know, everybody has been watching things in Juba, and then the eyes shift to Addis Ababa, where the talks are supposed to be ongoing. Right now, as we speak, what can you report? Where are we with the talks?
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. First, IO, that is in opposition, is not our word. It's put by IGAD.
Okay.
We are SPLM, SPLA, full stop.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Well, as we speak, the consultative meeting or meetings held by IGAD mediation process from the 8th to 10th of this month ended, and we don't know the details.
Yeah.
What will be the next round, and when is it going to take place? But what we have learned is that the IGAD envoys produced an unofficial document called Key Provisions and Justification for the Agreement on the Resolution of the Conflict in the Republic of South Sudan.
Okay. So just a document.
Yeah, just a document.
Okay. One thing that for us we've been really focusing on is the suffering in South Sudan, and we've covered this extensively, the human suffering. To what extent do the leadership, sit back and forget about IGAD and Addis Ababa and just as South Sudanese and say, our people are suffering, we need to fix this thing?
Well, you are right, and I think we are also concerned that our people are suffering immensely, and such suffering must be brought to an end. Mm-hmm. And equally important is that when there is a crisis of this magnitude, you need to look into what brought it.
Exactly.
What brought it. Yeah. So that if you are to address it, if you are to find a solution, a sustainable solution, a durable solution, then you must address the root causes.
And I have to agree. We've talked about this quite a bit, with the root causes, and I think people keep going back to that, and I don't see it taking anybody anywhere. How about if we talk about this a little bit today? I've always wanted to know what the impact has been on the treasure of Southern Sudan, that is wildlife, a docket you held some time back. What is the fate of that, of the wildlife in South Africa, which is very important for not only today, but for the future of the country?
Well, definitely, the war is taking its toll on everybody, on everything you can think of in the country. The loss of human lives is immense, very huge. The loss of property, destruction, you name them, including the loss of wildlife, which is our treasure, as you said. And what is happening now, with a lot of fighting going on, and especially in those areas where wildlife is predominant, the answer is animals are like human beings. Now there is migration of refugees, displacement of
and some of the animals are now moving to other countries.
And now the animals are also following the footsteps of others for their safety. So they are moving into several directions.
Some are also being poached or being killed by people.
Well, that's how they move. They have to migrate because they are being killed like any other animals. So they migrate to Kenya, to Uganda, to Central Africa, to Congo, to Sudan, and to Ethiopia. All are neighbors.
What a loss, and it might be impossible.
And this is a repeat of our long war with the Sudan.
You know, we're looking to see a solution. We hope for the best. Mr. Chang, we thank you very much for joining us today here on Africa 54. Mr. Gabriel Jackson Chang is the head of finance of SPLM and the former minister of wildlife in South Sudan. Well, now June 12th marks World Day Against Child Labor, but in many countries, children in developing countries below the age of 18 have to work to help their families or just take care of themselves. In Ethiopia, more than 60% of the country's children are engaged in different forms of child labor. Mathman De Wolf has our report.
Child labor is still common in many parts of the world. In Ethiopia, many children are helping their parents on the land or roaming the streets trying to sell goods or shining shoes. These boys here are all between 12 and 16. Alula Pankhurst has done years of research on child labor. He says it's culturally accepted for Ethiopian children to support their families and that this differs from kids who have had to do worse forms of labor.
Our children get pushed into working due to the poverty in the household, but also when the household faces a shock with the death of a family member, particularly the breadwinner.
This center at the outskirts of Addis Ababa is set up by the local organization Forum on Sustainable Child Empowerment. They take in underage girls who have had to prostitute themselves for a living. They are less visible than the shoe shiners and more vulnerable than those children who are working to support their families. 17-year-old Belainesh came from a rural village and became a domestic worker in the capital city. But she decided to leave her job as a maid because her employer treated her badly.
As a housemaid, I didn't like my job. Back then I had friends who were in the business of prostitution, and they told me of the high income. So I quit my job and joined them.
The Forum on Sustainable Child Empowerment makes sure the girls are taken care of and receive an education. They are also taught skills. 18-year-old Ndelalen just received her certificate and now works in a barbershop. Despite earning only a third of what she earned on the street, she says she will never go back.
There may be a lot of money involved in what we did, but it was not healthy. Now we earn a little money, but life is good now. I do not want to return to what I did in the past.
Several Ethiopian organizations, though, say that working on rights issues is limited due to the country's 2009 civil societies law, which makes it more difficult to improve conditions for those children caught up in child labor. Marta van der Wolf for VOA News, Addis Ababa.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54 and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, Africa shows potential in developing an international market for leather goods. Stay with us.
My name is Raymond Wang. I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Yes, that's Raymond Wang. He's not new. He's 17 years old. What is new is what he's invented, a way to keep germs from spreading in airplane cabins.
I was able to generate modifications to the aircraft cabin in order to reduce disease transmission by up to 55 times and improve passenger pressure inhalation by up to 190%.
Wang invented fin-shaped devices that redirect the cabin's airflow, creating virtual walls of air around each passenger. Wang says it would only cost about $1,000 to install the devices in an airplane cabin.
To basically be able to improve airflow overnight.
And as the winner of the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair, Wang is now $75,000 richer. 17 years old.
It feels amazing. I never expected that this would happen.
For VOA's What's New, I'm Todd Grosson.
Welcome back. A wealth of livestock means Africa has enormous potential in the leather market. According to Common Market for East and Southern African Leather and Leather Products Institute, African countries share only 3.3% of the $300 billion global leather industry. Yet it supplies 26% of the world's livestock. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
At Jamaica Shoe Factory in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, leather designs are manufactured. Tesfaye Bayin runs the business. Founded by his father in 1970, today he has 125 employees, which produce 160,000 pairs of shoes a year.
We are exporting these shoes to a Japanese client called Hiroki in Yokohama. We have so far shipped 3 times for them. They have bought 10,000 pairs of shoes, and they have placed new orders again for which we are preparing the raw materials.
Last year, Ethiopia earned $250 million from leather exports and plans to double that in 5 years. Like many leather-producing countries in Africa, Ethiopia is looking to promote and develop its leather industry through partnerships that can help it trade globally. At the recent All-African Leather Fair in Addis Ababa, industry players exchanged ideas and marketed their products. Researchers say Africa could boost leather sales by focusing on finished goods instead of raw exports. The director of the Kamesa Leather Products Institute organized the fair.
Global value chain is around 300 billion worth of value in US dollars. Unfortunately, Africa only gains around 3.3% to around 4% max, while we are actually supplying 26% of the livestock to the world. So you can look at this vast gap, and it tells you that Africa is actually on the losing grip.
Africa is a fast-growing market source for leather. So far, Kamesa is working with 8 African countries to market their leather. Ethiopia boasts the largest livestock production in Africa and the 10th largest in the world. The managing director of Bobby Leathers, Uganda, says Africa should employ new technology in processing its leather into finished products.
5 years ago, much of the leather wasn't processed. We are exporting raw hides. But today, exportation was banned. Now, much of it is semi-processed, but even that's not good enough. We want, when we are at the fair, you can see there is no any, everything is finished. It's a finished leather of different grades. This is where we want to go. This is what we don't have there in my country. We process at up to one-stop stage.
Another way to boost Africa's share of the leather market would be to partner with countries like India. Working together, some say, will allow African companies to compete with the influx of cheap Chinese goods and manage rising raw material costs and labor shortages.
They don't have the raw material that can push them from $13 billion to $27 billion, which they aim to have in the next 5 to 10 years. They will have to work with Africa. The question is, are we ready to work with the rest of the continents in the world and also satisfy the demand of leather and leather products within this particular continent?
The Food and Agriculture Organization says African countries still face challenges entering world markets because they often lack reliable data and the quality of processed leather demanded by consumers. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. 2 NBA players are joining the fight against Ebola with a public service announcement. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari calls for regional effort to fight Boko Haram. In Burundi, the economy is on the brink of collapse amid political turmoil and weeks of violent protest. In Egypt, fewer tourists visit Luxor after foiled attack that would have been a massacre. In Sudan, novelist Amir Taj Al-Sir is awarded a Qatari Arab Novel Award for his novel 366. Finally, in Guinea, wild chimps found to enjoy alcohol in scientific survey that sheds light on an evolution theory. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Well, it's been an exciting week in sports. For all of the highlights, we turn to Sonny Young with us. Sunny side of sports. Sonny.
Hi, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Let's tip off with the National Basketball Association finals. The best-of-7 championship series is now tied at 2 games each after the Golden State Warriors beat the host Cleveland Cavaliers 103-82. After 3 close games, this was the most lopsided contest in the NBA Finals. League Most Valuable Player Stephen Curry scored 22 points for the Warriors, who we see in the blue uniforms. And Golden State also got 22 points from surprise starter Andre Iguodala, who has Nigerian blood on his father's side. The Warriors are bidding for their first NBA championship in 40 years. The last time they were in the NBA Finals, Cleveland has never won the NBA title. Game 5 is Sunday night in Oakland, California. Let's give a sunny side of sports salute to NBA players Serge Ibaka and Luc Baamute, who are joining in the fight against Ebola in this public service announcement.
The game is not over yet.
Ebola won't go down without a fight.
But it can be beaten.
Infections are dropping.
But this is no time to celebrate. If we are gonna win,
it's gonna take a full court press. We need players, not spectators.
1 case left is 1 too many.
It's not over until the clock strikes 0. Help us reach 0 faster.
I'm Sonny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sonny. And remember to watch for the sunny side of sports every Monday and Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and then the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. And we leave you now with some music from Makori Traoré.
Ça c'est Doudé. C'est moi qui doux. Laisse-moi. Non. Ça c'est Doudé. C'est moi qui doux. Je te dis que c'est Doudé. Madame, c'est moi qui doux. Ça là, c'est Doudé. Bon, ok.
Aïe. La vie n'est pas toujours un fleuve tranquille. Entre l'espoir et la crainte, c'est pas facile. Toucher nos rêves, tant que possible. Accroche-toi, ne baisse pas les bras, tout est possible. Parfois on s'isole, on s'exile, on aimerait être seul au monde comme Tom Hanks sur une île. Sauve ton cœur, laisse-le parler, avance, rien ne sert de courir après le passé. Caresser l'espoir, c'est tout est. Savourer une victoire, c'est tout est. Un mariage, une naissance, un baptême, un anniv, tout ce qu'on partage, c'est tout est. Laisse les grimaces, je veux un smiley, je vais injecter de l'amour et de la paix comme Bob Marley. C'est maintenant, jamais, la vie, on va la slataner. Let's go! Oui, j'ai des défauts, je fais ce qu'il faut même si je fais des fautes. Si je flaire, faut que je me rattrape, car dans ma vie j'en ai vu d'autres. On dit qu'il n'est jamais trop tard, faut bien prendre un nouveau départ. On recherche tous de la chaleur, on se lève chaque jour en quête du bonheur. Ils disent qu'on y arrive de justesse, qu'on a...
Real talk, real issues, the real Africa. It's time to get the scoop, Monday through Friday on VOA. Find your time zone and get the scoop.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On
VOA.
qubanaha VOA waxaan ku soo gudbinnaa qubanayaal goosgoos ah oo xiiso badan oo ku saabsan arrimaha Soomaaliya, Mareykanka iyo caalamkaba.
haddaba qubanaha VOA da kala soco website-keena voasomali.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories.
Here's a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.